Turn mine on. Good evening, Rolling Meadows. The September 11th, 2018 meeting of the City Council is now in session. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. It's going on eBay tomorrow.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Cannon?
Here.
Alderman Bumance?
Present.
Alderman Majikis?
Here.
Alderman Gallo?
Here.
Alderman Baner?
Here.
Alderman Diastis?
Present.
Alderman Williams?
Here.
With 7 present and none absent, we do have a quorum. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the August 28th, 2018 City Council meeting and the August 21st, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Ms. Majikis has made that. Is there a second? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions?
Correction.
Yes.
On page 4 of 14, it says that I voted both for and against the amendment proposed by Alderman Diastis, and even though I'm from Chicago and born and raised there, I did not vote twice on this issue. Just saying.
Are there any other corrections or deletions or additions? Seeing none, the question is, shall the minutes be approved? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. I need to ask for a motion to deviate. Mr. Budmats has made that. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
You know, this is going to be a great pleasure. You know, Pastor Smith came up to me and he said, I've got to get out of here in a hurry. Pastor Smith, we have a proclamation for you. You go to the head of the line. Step up.
Thank you. Can I talk, or do you want to talk?
No, you don't get to talk. One of those rare times. I'm just kidding. We're just going to bring you up here. There was a little skullduggery going on with your old pastor because he got you to dinner tonight and he got you here. And see, a lot of people knew about this proclamation, but you didn't. In fact, the council you wanted to meet, they're in the back of the room. He was all worried about, I'm not going to be able to make that church council. He was putting the pressure on me, so I had to. So for many of you, I've had the opportunity to know this young man for a good number of years. I'm very thankful for all his help. I'm also thankful that what you've done for the community, and we're going to try and keep this so we don't get tears in our eyes towards the end of this. Many of you know that Pastor Smith is, and we could call you doctor, correct? I mean, but we never did that because he was just one of the guys. He was just Randy. We know about Cornfest, and we've done that for many, many years. I was sad that he was leaving because I don't know if any of you have ever gone to Cornfest, but it's all the corn you can eat, all the hamburgers, hot dogs, bratwursts you can eat. And I tried last year to do the concession for dental floss, but he wouldn't give it to me. So I was hoping that maybe next year. But Randy has done, I call him a friend. I've had the opportunity to participate in your services after Cornfest. I've also had the opportunity to meet with you and other pastors, and you've helped pray for me and guide me. So there's so many things that we go on, but you know, you're in a hurry to get to a meeting. So we really have to watch that meeting. How many times have you ever been gotten, Randy? I don't think it's been too often.
This is second.
This is the second time? All right. Well, yeah, no, because I got calls from most of these folks, and they said, okay, we're going to get them. So that's it. So I do have a proclamation. And members of your church got the intel on you. I mean, it was really, where could we find it? This is in honor of Pastor Randy Smith. Whereas Randy served the United States Army in the early 70s and was stationed in Germany, and whereas Randy was called to seminary school in 1976 and was ordained in December 1979, whereas Randy holds a Master's of Divinity, a Doctorate of Ministry from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, and completed a Master's of Theology degree from Princeton University. I would have been afraid to approach you if I'd known you had all those degrees in the beginning. Randy has pastored at 4 other congregations before coming to Community Church of Rolling Meadows: Niagara Falls, New York, Altoona, Pennsylvania, Key West, Florida, and Peru, Indiana. Whereas Randy has served as pastor of the Community Church of Rolling Meadows for more than 17 years, actually arriving in July 2001, and whereas Randy has served on numerous planning committees in the Rolling Meadows community, for example, by participating on the Mayor's Senior Housing Committee, Police Chiefs Advisory Committee, City of Rolling Meadows 50th Anniversary Committee, numerous city events and ceremonies, especially the annual Memorial Day ceremony. Whereas Randy has been the driving force behind the community church's annual Christmas dinner theater production and annual community prayer breakfast. Whereas Randy has also been instrumental in bringing, you don't sleep much, do you? In religious leaders of Rolling Meadows together for prayer and community worship through joint prayer meetings, Good Friday services, and community worship services throughout the year. Whereas Randy has grilled thousands of hamburgers and hot dogs at the Community Church Annual Corn Fest, we do look forward to his return every first Saturday in August for the church's annual Corn Fest. We were going to get you a hat and an apron to bring you back. I, therefore, Len Prana, do hereby proclaim September 28th, 2018 as Pastor Randy Smith Day in the city of Rolling Meadows, and join the City Council, the Rolling Meadows community in wishing Randy, Pastor Smith, and his wife Kathy a wonderful, fruitful, loving, healthy, and caring retirement. From the city of Rolling Meadows. Go ahead, Jerry. I know you're not going to want to leave without saying a few things because you did sign in on the sheet. So now it's your turn, Randy.
Thank you. I wanted to come here this evening and thank all of you. I couldn't go around to every house in Rolling Meadows and thank all of the people, so I wanted to thank you as representing Rolling Meadows. It has been an honor to have been here for 17 years. I couldn't have asked for a better place to come and serve. I will be Sunday, September 30th is my last sermon at Community Church. And after 17 years, it's hard to believe how fast that time has gone. I come from a Presbyterian background. In the Presbyterian Church, there's lots of connections with other pastors, and I was concerned when I got here that I wouldn't have the fellowship of other pastors. And so I went around to introduce myself to the other churches and asked the pastors to participate in my installation service. And that was, they all agreed to do that. And it was very providential that happened, because 17 years ago today, our world changed forever. And so after that, I think most of the churches had a service that evening, a prayer service. But I called the other pastors and asked if we could do a joint service on Friday night after September 11th. And they agreed. And so we began at Meadows Baptist outside, carrying the flag and the cross. We went from Meadows Baptist across the street to our congregation, and then outside by our cross, and then the crowd went on to Trinity Lutheran, and finally we ended up at St. Colette, where we had inside a standing room only prayer service in there for our nation. And that led to us having the community prayer breakfast, which you all have supported over the years, and we appreciate that very much. And again, because of the community involvement, we were able, when the city had its 50th anniversary, to have a community worship service in which all of the churches participated. And we rented the high school, and we had the service there. And so you all have given me an opportunity, really, to be involved in the community in a very special way, a way that most pastors don't get. And for that, I am deeply appreciative. It's been an honor to serve Community Church. It's been an honor to serve in Rolling Meadows. You will always be in my prayers. Blessings.
Thank you.
If you'd like to take a moment, I know that meeting you were going to go to, I'm sure they'd love to take a couple pictures up here with you.
I would like that.
Come on up, guys. You're the meeting that he told me he had to get out of here for, so. Brian, are you the official photographer?
Okay. I'm gonna be an unofficial photographer.
Okay.
All right, squish in. Act like you like each other. All right, Randy, now hold up your street sign.
Yeah, Andrew has always liked to give orders to me. I've noticed that.
Excellent.
And thank you again. And if it ever gets dull in Nashville, Indiana, second, third, fourth Tuesday of the month, right here at 7:30, you can come visit. Going to give us proclamation. Thank you. This brings us to the mayor's report. I'm going to do something I usually have not done in the past, is that we need to come to the from residents that we need as a council to be more respectful and appropriate with one another at times. I've had to meet or discuss with more than one council member at times a behavior or something that has gone on in the meeting, and this council is the face of the city and the citizens and the staff. So tonight we have a very passionate debate that will be going on, so I would ask that all of us try and remember to be as respectful as possible. Moving on to the mayor's report, the more fun things is that for those of you that were at Friday's rock concert, we did, it was a great evening, even though the weather had been threatening, and I am told, Mr. Whitney, we sold all the ducks this year, so it was the best year ever for the duck races, for those of you that were there. I did have the opportunity that we do have the Rolling Meadows Bike Club now from part of the Environmental Committee, and we went on an approximately For me, it wound up being a 10-mile ride through Rolling Meadows on Saturday morning, and they're having another one next Saturday. I also had the opportunity to attend the seniors luncheon today, where we had 130 seniors participate, and it was a great time. So there's always something going on in Meadows. Are there any other ward reports this evening?
I have a ward report, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr.
So it appears the last meeting that we held, it raised a lot of eyebrows and perked up a lot of ears with the conversation about the fire station. And as a result, I spent the last 14 days meeting with residents, collecting and addressing questions, comments, and concerns. And as a result, I put together a report that I hope is comprehensive enough and touches on as much as I can. And so I'll try and keep this brief and concise, so please bear with me. During the previous meeting on August 28th, the council was asked to award a contract to a contractor whom we owe nothing. We set out to build 2 fire stations with a signed agreement roughly 2 years ago on a budget of $9 million. Even 2 years ago, this cost was still on the high end if you're familiar with the industry. And yeah, it's true, you can build a structure for as costly or as frugal as seen fit given your budget. But in 2 years, however, this price tag has had a budget which is ballooned to a rate where we're now asked as a council to approve bonds amounting to $17 million, which is 76% of that is earmarked specific to these fire stations. That's $13 million and 44% increase to the original cost, which when we signed this contract 2 years, 6 months, and 3 days ago, but I'm not keeping track. And while we haven't even broken ground yet, there's no guarantee that any more out of scope or change orders are not going to occur. And aside from the thought of the almost inevitable out of scope or change orders, I, like the rest of the residents at home, we're hearing how during the last meeting we continue to add upgrades to our stations, which increase the cost to what's an already exorbitant price. And this reflects poor cost control. Being well beyond a contracted gross maximum price of $9 million and continuing to add additional upgrades, well, that infuriated me. And as a result, I muttered a poor choice of words under my breath, for which I apologize. But I do not apologize for standing up for the financial well-being of the residents when we as a city demonstrate poor cost controls and lack of adhering to a budget. Furthermore, to the firefighters who were asked to stack the room during the last meeting, I want there to be no misunderstanding that the Fourth Ward sentiment regarding the fire station and this excessive expense is not meant as a personal attack on you and not meant to deprive you of something. You're indirectly caught in the middle, and we understand that in the Fourth Ward. We also understand that you should have the best. And we should all agree that it's the vehicles, the equipment, and their expertise that save lives and not a fire station. And so to this point, you should recognize how the council does approve expenses for top-tier vehicles and equipment, backed with the blessing of the residents. I'm even told that our neighboring firefighters check in to see what we have, what bells and whistles are included, and they take note of that and they use it as their baseline when making their next purchases. And that's something to be proud of. And Chief, I don't want this to be taken as a personal attack on you either. You're well respected by your staff, you're dedicated, and the Fourth Ward is proud that you're Rolling Meadows Fire Chief. But you're not a construction project manager, and you shouldn't have been put in that position in the first place. By allowing the end user to act as the project manager, it eliminates a very special function of cost control. This is apparent by the continued upgrades of such things like standing seam roofs, which will outlast the building, or building automation systems, upgrading HVAC systems, countertops, plus anything else that has significantly impacted the price. It's this simple. When we've exceeded the original budget, we don't get the luxury of adding more cost, using more money that we don't have, which belongs to other people in the first place. And Manager Crumstock, speaking of simple, after the last meeting, a resident approached me. And he questioned a remark that you made, and I'll quote the words for accuracy. He said, "You said, this is not like building a house." And while I can only speak for myself and that resident who brought this up, I would also like to believe that many of us on the council agree with you. This is not like building a house. However, whether it's a residential or commercial structure, each come with a series of standards and codes, whether local or national, that have to be supported when you're building. These codes can have inherent impact to costs, and while this is not a house, it also doesn't have to be this complicated. We've been paying R.C. Wegman to guide us through this process. And during the phase when feasibility studies were taking place, we should have examined issues like water retention and runoff, incorporating the highest conservative costs into our original $9 million estimate, and not as an add-on as we heard during the last meeting. And if that happened to be an oversight during the feasibility study, then oversights occur, I guess. But then we're left as residents who approached me and discussed this to determine what other oversights might we have missed. And Alderman Banjer, when you said you trust our staff and our contractors, I agree with you on that because we don't want to get in the way of micromanaging. But this is not micromanaging, it's the council performing their role, providing due diligence. And while it's good to trust, it's also good to agree with the philosophy of trust but verify. And while verifying this, I've encountered too many discrepancies, which I'll address later when the agenda item comes up. For now, the Fourth Ward would like us as a council to consider thinking long and hard before amending or signing any contract that seals our debt with unnecessary expenses. I know the Fourth Ward vote alone is not going to stop the migration of 15 and the eventual migration of Station 16, and I am not asking anyone on the council to change their vote on that. What the residents are asking for me to convey to the council is that we pause, select a better construction management firm through a new open bid process so we can proceed with this project at a more palatable cost because it can and must be done. It's not too late. And if anyone says or feels that it cannot be done, they subscribe to a quitter's attitude. And we're not a city of quitters, and they're probably not the right people to provide input on this project. There's always room to improve. There are plenty of contractors out there eager to be more competitive. And it's one thing to hold meetings to understand how costs have risen, because excuses are easy, but it's another thing to remediate those costs. And so I'd officially like to thank the many residents who approached me and had these conversations with me, bringing this ward report to you, affirming that last meeting on August 28th, that my efforts trying to control costs, speaking and acting on their behalf, didn't go unnoticed. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Are there other ward reports? Mr. Banjer.
Thank you. I'm not one to interrupt. I was waiting for the chair to do that instead. Ward reports are simply that. It's a ward report. This entire conversation Mr. Gallo just had was about an item on the agenda. I understand it might be coming from the standpoint of the Fourth Ward or the folks he's spoken to in the Fourth Ward, but I kind of expected the chair to intervene and push that to the appropriate council area on the agenda. I was also assured by the chair tonight that there'd be an apology, not a sorry, not sorry, about the F-bombs that were dropped 2 weeks ago. And that didn't happen. This council asks members of the public not to use profanity, so it was embarrassing when one of our own used profanity. I'm stone deaf, so of course I didn't hear it until I heard the hot mic online and when I got home. So, number one, I'm disappointed that the chair did not intervene to save us from us speechifying during a ward report. Number two, those assurances that there would be an apology didn't quite pan out, and I'm somewhat disappointed about that. Again, ward reports, I would think, are matters relating to the ward that aren't further down on the agenda. Thank you.
I will just comment on that, Mr. Banjer, is that I did take that into consideration, but he was speaking, when you have a ward report, speaking on behalf of what he feels is represented in the Fourth Ward. So that was the reason I did not interrupt him. Secondly, I did have that conversation, and it may not have been the apology that everyone or some people wanted, but there was an apology there. That's all I can go forward with. Any other ward reports? Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Matakis.
Thank you. On a lighter note, I'd just like to say that I was able to attend the senior luncheon today also, and I wanted to thank everybody that invited me, Lori Cizak, all the volunteers, all the seniors, the wonderful group I sat with. Everybody, it was a wonderful time. So I just want to say thank you for that. Also, I wanted to put a shout out to community development. I had a resident contact me about a permit that she was kind of waiting on, but it turned out she wasn't waiting long at all. But when I went to talk to them, the permit was ready and she was all set to go and thrilled with community development and the process and how quickly it went. So I want to say thank you and much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matakis. Mr. Diastis.
Thank you. Yes, I need to say thanks to Fred and Rob. A resident had an issue with a light, and they reached back to me and said to say thank you, gentlemen, and to your team for getting that light issue corrected. She said they're very happy with the way it turned out. So my thanks on behalf of the resident to you and to your team for taking care of that.
Thank you. Seeing no other ward reports, the council meeting is now open to members of the audience for 20 minutes to address the city council on matters that are not on the agenda or regarding other issues. We ask that persons wishing to address the city council keep their comments to 5 minutes in length. Comments must be addressed to the council as a whole through the mayor, and profanity may not be used in any form. The first signatory is Annette Seisfran. Annette, I'm sorry. After all these years, you would think I would get it right.
Thank you, Mayor. It's Zafran.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say good evening to our Mayor Prina, our aldermen, alderwoman, city staff. I'm a longtime resident of Rolling Meadows and very well connected and do a lot of volunteer work in my recent years being retired. So I'm kind of in an awkward position, but I'm coming before you as a resident tonight. So these are my comments. Once again, residents come before you to state their displeasure over the fire station issues. The idea of putting 13 to 15 million in a bond issue hit a nerve with most citizens. Most have reconciled that a new fire station will be built on Algonquin and learned that the estimate for the build was 5.6 million, or that was stated in the Daily Herald recently. Now the city wants to issue bonds in excess of 13 million. That includes the land purchases of both parcels of land and the design build of 2 stations. Personally, I think the 13 to 19 million, whatever it is much too much debt being lumped into a bond issue that includes so much more than what was originally on the table. I don't feel it is in line with what residents thought the plan was, which is building both fire stations at the same time. The fire issue has been going on for a very long time because a bunch of bad decisions were made in the past and present councils. And it started with the Dominic's property. After 12 years of it being unavailable because Dominic still had a landhold on it, finally it fell into foreclosure. The biggest blunder the council made at that time was not purchasing that parcel. Residents had tons of ideas for its use, even including building a city center and a park building. Instead, Clark Development purchased it on the cheap, fully aware it was zoned commercial. Second mistake the council made was to allow the zoning change from commercial to residential. It was Clark's obligation to market it as such. Remember how the council told residents there were only a few proposals for its use, one of which brought out a flurry of residents primarily because it just wasn't a favorable business for our city. Then we were told the council felt something there is better than nothing. Thank you. Look what we have. So the council allowed the zoning change to satisfy Clark's townhouse proposal to proceed. It should have been up to Clark to market it accordingly as a commercial piece of property. Look around. Seems like other communities are building city centers on their commercial property. This was another mistake our council made. That brings me to the fire stations. As much as most favored keeping the Meadow Fire Station in town, the location did not allow sufficient space to expand or rationalize costly upgrades. Once again, residents came out in droves and there were lots of comments, and it was even a debatable point in the mayoral race. A lot was heard about the response times as reasons to relocate our fire stations.
Annette, just 30 seconds, please.
So what did we do? We decided to build 2 at one time. Does this make sense? How do you manage the build of 2 major properties? It just doesn't make good business sense. And I think the best solution would be forget moving the station on Plum Grove Drive, because I don't feel that's going to impact a business or a response time. And locating it on Euclid Avenue makes no sense.
Thank you. Lynn Vicker.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. First of all, I want to say that I heard the apology tonight, and I accept the apology tonight. Okay. Now, the original proposal for the building of 2 new fire stations was $9 million. The project was approved with that $9 million as budget. Now the proposed project cost is up to $13 million. That's an increase of at least 44%. However, that's not including the $2.1 million already spent on the purchase of the Algonquin Road property, which brings the cost to over $15 million. Really? In our household, we would have to forego our project because we could not afford that great of an increase, or we would reassess our needs. We would reassess our wish list and align our goals within our budget. Why does R.C. Wegman Construction Company, or the city staff for that matter, think it's okay to attain a contract and then continue raising the costs? It appears R.C. Wegman wants to be given free rein by the city and be given a virtual blank check. Where does it end? If the City Council believes this is good business practice, we would expect them to validate their reasoning in specifics. Is this the current market price for a building structure of this type? Are the proposed changes to the project really mandatory, or just added to an unjustified wish list? How did R.C. Wegman's initial bid compare with other bids? Where is the specific data to support the proposed increases? My main point in all of this is in fairness to the taxpayers of Rolling Meadows. We ask City Council to thoroughly review again the project's valid requirements and obtain additional bids from other reputable general contractors before moving forward on this project. If, after all these bids are received and the cost is still $13 million plus, we then need to follow a different path to achieve the best outcome within our budget. And then, costs must be maintained within the budget and accepted quote. This is the council's responsibility and is definitely not a case of micromanaging. Allowing a project to get out of hand financially does not reflect good leadership or responsibility to the taxpayers. Mayor and members of the City Council. Mayor and members of the City Council. You all were elected by your constituents to lead, to make conscientious decisions that best represent the people of Rolling Meadows, those citizens who elected you. Please prove to us that you know how to do what you were elected to do. Thank you.
The next signatory, Bob Kerr.
Close enough.
Okay.
Everybody gets it wrong a time or two, and some
And
never
would
get it
you,
right.
would you correct me, please?
Good.
Kerr.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, we have quite a mess here with this fire station project. It's way over budget, and no one is sure why. In fact, that question was brought up at the last council meeting.
Could you move the mic up? Thank you.
Okay. Is that far enough?
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay. It was brought up here at this meeting, and nobody seemed to know why. Now, one aspect of good project management is to know where your budget's going, and it's clear that we don't. In fact, this project is a textbook example of how not to manage a construction project. The city didn't know what they were going to build, other than a couple of fire stations. And they didn't know where they were going to build them, but that didn't stop them from hiring a contractor. And that doesn't make sense. In fact, they gave the contractor a sweetheart deal in a cost-plus contract. Not good management. We had some original contenders for this, and that's how we wound up with Wedgman. But there was only 6 or 7 of them. And there were no local contenders. So how did this project escape the notice of our contractor friends? The bid evaluation was done by people on staff, none of whom had any significant construction experience, but they did have one shining reason to give it to Wedgman. Well, they were so enthusiastic. Well, of course they were enthusiastic. They were about to walk away with the goose that lays the golden egg. There was another contender that had a better price and a more thorough project breakdown, but I guess he wasn't enthusiastic enough. The city insisted on a contractor with fire station construction experience. That doesn't make sense either, because projects are defined by architects and engineers that prepare plans and specifications, and contractors execute those plans and specifications. Any competent contractor can build a fire station. Wedgman hired the architect. That also makes no sense, because the architect really should work for the owner. The owner and the architect should work together to define the project, define the needs, and establish how best to meet them. Instead, we turned that over to Wedgman, and I say that was a mistake. The city should have hired an experienced construction manager. The city does not have the experience or the manpower to do this properly. Plus, most municipal contracts utilize the design, bid, build process and are required to do so. Why not this one? It's the most economical means of project delivery. Cost Plus does not do this, neither does design build. This was a sweetheart deal for Wedgman. Plus, we wound up with a very poor contract form without any significant legal review. For example, the stated fee percentages are exorbitant, and several of them are mentioned in the contract. Now, if it's a fee, it's X%, regardless of what it's applied to. But we have several fee percentages in the contract. Wedgman is billing as a lump sum project and not a cost-plus project? Why no enforcement? Where's our attorney? Where's our finance department? Where's our city manager?
Sir, you have less than a minute to go.
Pardon?
You have less than a minute.
Okay.
We've used up half our time so far.
Okay, well, let's speed it up then. In the buildings now, there was one with 16% fee, 11% fee, 40.5% fee. So anyway, one solution to all this is to fire Wedgman. Wedgman has not done what he said he'd do. He has not controlled the cost. He hasn't even delivered the local participation that he claimed he could.
15 seconds, sir.
Okay. Another approach would be to step back and take a look at this project and ask ourselves, what are we doing? The original reason had to do with response time. So what response time are we getting with all this? A minute, 2 minutes improvement?
Sorry, sir. I'm going to have to cut you off there. So,
I say it's
sir,
a crime to throw away Station 16.
thank you for coming forward tonight. Carl
Piacenza.
Piacenza, thank you.
Irish. And a fine good evening to you all. My name is Carl Piacenza. I'm one of the owners of Palatine Welding Company in Rolling Meadows at 3848 Birdnick. Hillside officials, goes back to the meeting on 7/14. Hillside officials were also before Rolling Meadows City Council this week to unveil a proposal to locate a grass trimming and yard waste transfer station without even a building to put it into. Just leave it out in the middle of the thing. Have you ever smelled grass fermenting? It's awful. But anyhow, they can't do that. That's really ridiculous. There are some recommendations, like 15 of them from the city council. I would like to know who is holding the ticket on this to make sure all of these things are being at least tried to do or being done. I don't see anything happening over at the site where I'm talking about. It's right next door to me. It's starting to look really like a junkyard again. And that's not fair. And I feel that Palatine Welding has abided by everything that Rolling Meadows has ever said and done or suggested to Palatine Welding to do. We have done them. We paid for the road that's there. We've done everything. We've got a sidewalk. We maintain our yard with grass. We have it cut every week. The trees are trimmed. Our yard is completely asphalt according to specs. We've done everything. And here are all the things that they have to do. I think you can get this from the city, all the building permits that they're supposed to have, engineering plans, storm sewers. We had to put these all in when we built our new building. Everything was done. And I don't even see anything being excavated next door, nothing. The only thing I see is a very large semi laying there with garbage laying all over the place. Not fair. I'm a very tidy person. We keep our property very tidy, and I don't think it's fair to have someone come in to make it look like a garbage dump, which it really should end up to be. This is what they looked like in Arlington Heights, and they threw them out. And what happened there too is they had people sleeping in the wrecked cars, homeless people. And I don't want people living in the cars next to my place and breaking in there and wrecking my establishment. Not fair. I disagree with anything that they're going to do there. I would like them to go somewhere else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next signatory is Carol Elaine.
Good evening. In 1950s, Kimball Hill envisioned Rolling Meadows, a community of affordable homes that were especially attractive to military veterans returning home to start families. In 2018, a good number of those families still live here and even brought their friends to raise families here. It's a great town with a lot of wonderful to offer. Population 24,000, 9,000-ish homeowners. If we assume that 2/3 or 6,600 of those whose reported median salary is $65,000 a year after health insurance, if we are lucky enough to have a subsidized plan from our employer, $3,300 take home per month. Median home value reported at $220,000, roughly about $1,700 per month. We'll argumentatively put utilities at $400-ish per month. That gets this home, these 6,600 people, $2,100 per month to have a decent house in Rolling Meadows. That leaves $1,200 per month for maybe a family of 3, possibly a family of 4, for food, clothing, gas, not a new car, with insurance and have to have money for those repairs, medicine, doctor visits, maybe a small college plan, as well as to figure out how to maintain a furnace, water heater, roof, window siding, etc., minimally as possible. Done carefully, could possibly have an extra $200 once in a while for some fun. We do need to enjoy life instead of just working to have a house. They hope that these 6,600 people don't run into hospital bills with an out-of-pocket medical copay that can easily run a family up to $5,000 per year. Goodbye $200 extra, which is now not used to put money back into our town. It is used just to stay alive. The economy just barely got out of a huge recession. The future of our economy is not stable. How can you foresee that enough residents and businesses stick around to foot this $17 million bill for the next 20 years, plus all of the forecasted increases that Illinois and Cook County keep haunting us with? Will you be here as alder people and mayor to keep contributing to this price? Where's the money going to come from? Please do us a favor for the good of the residents that you're supposed to represent. Please put a for sale sign back on that purchased land on Algonquin and revisit better builds and wait until after the 2019 council elections to make a decision that involves a majority of the property tax paying residents of the next 20 years. Your plan is not the dream of Mr. Hill. He's not the plan for our residents. This is not the affordable way to help our residents. Thank you.
The next signatory is Ken Vicker.
Good evening. I wasn't going to talk, but 30 minutes ago I decided I'm going to do it, so bear with me. My name's Ken Vicker, and the fire station project is what I want to talk about. First of all, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and I don't have a college degree. But when I retired from AT&T, I was a buyer of engineering, design, and construction services. So I know a little bit what I'm talking about. I don't know much about this project. I don't know what the scope of work looks like. I don't know how the bidder selection was handled. I don't know who attended the bidders meeting, if all bidders attended. If there was a bidders meeting, there are always questions and answers come up. Were they answered and spread out amongst the bidders? What was the bid format? Did the bidders that respond honor your bid format? I don't know. But I do know that the fire station project is off the rails. And this project would never, ever, ever pass muster in the private sector.
Thank you. We have Terry Bohr. Are you?
My name's Terry Bohr. I'm here tonight representing R.C. Wegman Construction, and I'm here to hopefully answer any questions the council might have or provide any clarification. So, thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to Tom Stutzman.
Good evening. I showed up completely unprepared. These people had some great statements, a lot of comments. I've really been taking notes as they went along to kind of understand what's going on. I can tell you this gentleman and Mr. Vicker asked the exact right questions. And the biggest one I have, and this is not a knock on you, Fire Chief, but I need to know how he is named as a project manager. Where I work, there's people with professional certification and degrees to be project managers. And to expect somebody to do their job and project manage, I just don't get that. I mean, that has got to be the most important job, that along with construction management, watching how the money's being spent, how the work is being done. That's what their job is. So unless our fire chief is going to get some relief from his job to stand over this project and watch it, I'm just concerned who's watching the candy store on this one. Design build, cost plus, there are all ways to do it. I can't argue. I'm assuming the city council had some educated decisions on why we chose that route to go. But there's very specific things. The last gentleman talking about what was in the bid, what was asked, all of those things really need to be answered before we move forward on this. I understand representative from Wegman is here, self-serving, seems to be a nice gentleman, but I got to wonder what exactly is their role in this. Design build means I design it, I oversee the project while it's being built, and I report back to make sure things stay under. So I'm trying to understand how a fire chief can be a project manager while we expect him to do his job while we're paying somebody to oversee that whole process. There's just a lot of seems ambiguity around the whole thing. And I gotta be honest, it's not something I've been following that closely. My disappointment was that it happened up on Algonquin Road. I live in the subdivision right across from there. I not only get the high school and all the noise coming from there, I now get the privilege of having the fire station every time that goes off, to entertain us and give us that. I'm not knocking it. City council seemed to make a decision that that was the best place to be. I don't know. I wasn't part of any of those conversations, decisions. I'll believe that you guys made that decision, taking the best information you had to do that. But again, if we're moving forward on this to take all this money into bonds and spread it out across, past most likely the time I'm here, and put this bill onto that, the next group of people, I think you really need to look long and hard if this is the right way to go and to move on this project. So that's all I've got. Thanks.
We've gone over the 20 minutes, so I will still call up the next several folks, but realize you need to condense what you were going to say here, please. So, Patricia Callahan.
Good evening, Mayor Prana and Council. I just mostly have bullet points, so I have questions and points that I would like to bring to your attention and to ponder and think about before you make a decision this evening. My first question is that the main purpose of building a fire station on Algonquin Road was to increase times to increase response times to the southern section of the city. Mr. Diastis, please. I'm talking and I'm speaking. I'd like your attention.
I'm taking notes. Thank you.
Thank you. to increase our times to the city on the south side and to Gulf Road where we do have properties. We had a space at Meadowbrook and Algonquin Road, yet we went further down Algonquin Road. Does that make sense if we're trying to get to Gulf Road? Let's think about that. 10 years ago, we had a plan to go ahead and keep 15 where it was, keep 16 where it was, and to build that third fire station to the south. We had bond money. That bond money had a contingency, and that was to go ahead and to repair 15 and then build that station to the south. We lost that bond money because the voting went where they didn't want to go ahead and to repair Station 15. They went ahead and they wanted to build that new station first. And that station would have benefited Ward 6, who voted no. The main purpose, again, is to increase our times to the south.
Mr. Callahan, I'm
Okay,
gonna-
I know.
Thank you.
I also don't understand the rush to get this done, this project. This is something that is going to affect future generations of people in this city, not just us that are sitting here, but future generations. Is it because you guys want to get this done before the election in April? Please, don't rush on this. This is something that will be affected in future generations. I would also question why is where is the voting for expenditures? Usually in a government situation, anything over $10,000, anything would have to be approved. I don't see anything being approved. I've gone through minutes of meetings. I don't see any approvals.
30 seconds, Ms. Miller.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And also, too, there has been, in this type of situation, when you guys come in here to vote, it's the residents who you guys are voting for, not I or me. Not I was for this or I was against this, now I'm for this. It's for the residents, not a personal opinion. And the other thing that I noticed when I was looking at
Ms.
the, I know,
Can you
okay,
sum it
I
up,
know,
please?
I just want to bring up something.
I would love to give you more time, but the
Okay.
folks ahead of you, I asked them to.
Okay, all right.
And there were a number of people that spoke for 5 minutes
Okay.
and more, so.
Couple of things. One of the things I question is the 13%. Why are we paying a 13% construction management fee when the normal fee is 3 to 4%? That is not standard. Why are we allowing this? Maybe we should go ahead and have it take out other bids, because this is a big project. And maybe we should go ahead and revisit that plan 10 years ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next signatory is Debbie Williams.
I don't have anything formal to say. I just want to ask all of you to please reconsider the decision that you're making on the fire station, because I personally do not think that the city is being fiscally responsible to the residents of Rolling Meadows. We have a lot of senior citizens living on fixed incomes, and we're trying to bring in young families into Rolling Meadows who have many other expenses as childcare and taking care of their family. And I just feel that we should revisit this plan for 2 brand-new fire stations and be more fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Mr. Steve Hollish.
Good evening. I'm going to hit this a little bit differently because we had a lot of passionate people, and I'll keep this real short. I was a professional project manager. I know what's to be done on projects. As a project manager, you're given the responsibility and the accountability to run a project to keep it under budget, within specification, and on time. But you have no authority. That's what your stakeholders are for. All you should have been stakeholders in this. All you should have been selecting it. You selected the present consultant to do the job. He was the best one qualified for this job. He's doing what has been told. It's nice to see the information that has come out online since the August 28th meeting to discuss all this information. In May, you all were told the budget's going to be $13 million. None of you came forward and said, hey, what's the breakdown? What's going on? Where are these costs going? Everybody sat there fat, dumb, and happy. Come August, all of a sudden you get this bill and you go $13 million for a bond. What's going on? Nobody knows. So now we got a detailed description of what the amount is, and everybody's getting, oh, why is it still so high? Back in March of 2016, it was $3.425 million per station. It went up to $5.585614 in this August bid. It's very interesting how you made a $13 million budgetary promise back in the beginning of this year, and then, oh wait, in August, we get the official bids. There's something very strange there. To me, it looks like you're backfilling. You're matching your costs to what you said, oh, we've got this to spend. To me, going from the 5.5 or 3.4 to 5.5, that's a 62% increase. Okay, there's a little bit there for inflation. I've heard from R.C. Wegman that there's cost increased on building a station and everything's fine. They justified what you asked them to do. They gave you the items that are increased the most cost. Therefore, you should listen to them. Take out the stuff that you feel isn't necessary, and I'll keep it short, and reduce the cost. This GMP is the maximum, not what it's going to be. It could be less, but we don't know. The bids for the first station are only the bids we've got. We don't have bids for the second station. There you get a cost decrease. So there's a lot of work that has to be done, but you can't shoot the project manager. He's only being driven by the stakeholders. Our chief is a stakeholder. He's only accountable for service and operation of a fire station, nothing more.
Thank you.
That's it. I'll keep it short.
The first order of business is the ordinance in for a second reading. Ordinance A, number 13-38, amend code for the municipal gas use tax, in for the second reading. This ordinance, if adopted, would amend the city code for the municipal gas use tax and repeals ordinance 18-17, which was passed this year, and provides a clean ordinance. Nicor Gas Company's legal counsel provided the city with this amended and updated ordinance, which an agreement to be approved by resolution for approval by the city council. Nicor Gas Company's legal counsel requires that no reference of how money will be used by the city. However, per the city's annual budget, the municipal gas use tax will be deposited into the city's local road fund for the purpose of repairing, resurfacing, and reconstructing the city's roadways. This tax is scheduled for December 1st, 2018 implementation. Do I have a motion? Mr. Budmats has made that, and I have a second. Is there a discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Badger?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
No.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Matakis?
Yes.
6 in favor and 1 opposed. That ordinance does pass. This brings us to ordinance B, number 18-39-1219, Golf Road Special Use. This ordinance, if adopted, would allow for a special use to provide outside seating for Pita Pita, a new restaurant located at 1219 Golf Road. Outdoor seating is permitted for restaurants for seating of 12 people or fewer. The special use approval for a seating area to have up to 18 outdoor seats is available. In addition, the seating area is proposed to wrap around the side of the building where the city code requires 5-foot separation be provided from the adjacent driveway aisle. In this case, only 1-foot separation is proposed with a protective fence. The Planning and Zoning Commission had the following special use conditions. No outdoor seating will be permitted past 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday or 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. Outdoor seating is allowed from April 1st to November 1st every year. No storage of outdoor seating items will be permitted, when not in use at night, and from November 1st to April 1st. D, if the business ceases to utilize the outdoor seating areas for a full season, the fences and gates shall be removed. E, petitioner will pursue with the landowner permission to install painted pedestrian markings at the front of the building. C, a 36-inch ADA compliant aisle to be maintained at all aisles at all times. G, fencing shall be reinforced with the possibility of using bollards for the uprights at the west side and wraparound area. At a meeting held on Wednesday, August 8th, 2018, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 with 4 absent to recommend the item. At the August 28th City Council meeting, items E and G were removed from the drafted ordinance during the first reading. Item C was also slightly amended, and this ordinance before you tonight now reflects those changes. Do I have a motion to move forward?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Diastis. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Badger?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Bud Matts?
Yes.
Alderman Macias?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
With 7 for and none against, that ordinance does move forward. Ordinance C, number 18-40, 3650 Burnick Street Plan Development Amendment. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve a plan development amendment to the material service planned development for the property located at 3650 Burnick Street for its current owner, Hillside Auto Body and Service Incorporated. The subject property, consisting of 30.835 acres or 4 tax parcels, is located in the M2 Manufacturing District and was approved in the 1980s as part of a planned development acting as a concrete mixing plant. This operation ceased several years ago and the property sat unused. In 2015, the property was purchased by Hillside Towing, which is seeking approval to repurpose it into the variety of potential uses, some of which Hillside plans to operate itself on the eastern portion of the site, and some of which potential lessees will operate in the future on the western portion of the site. The proposed use for the eastern portion of the property is to include temporary vehicle storage, repairs to equipment, inclusive of refuge dumpsters and used vehicle sales with no on-site sales, minor vehicle repairs, and various material outdoor storage. Proposed use for the western portion of the property are less defined. Potential uses mentioned by the petitioner have included landscape, waste transfer, i.e. PA permitting would be required, truck rental, and metals scrap yard. The petition has made the request for the existing gravel lot to remain unpaved. Staff has recommended, and the Planning and Zoning Commission concurred that this request not be granted and the lot be paved. Concrete, asphalt, brick pavers upon development phases proceeding. An extensive number of conditions for this requested plan development amendment have been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission in their action to recommend approval by a vote of 5-0 with 4 absences. The Hillside Towing proposed amendment. These conditions, inclusive of the actual site, public right-of-way, landscaping, etc., have been included within the proposed ordinance. Do I have a motion for this ordinance? Thank you, Mr. Banger. And a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Banger.
I think, out of respect for the fellow who, from Palatine Welding, who came and spoke to us tonight, the transfer station down the street has to, when I toured that early on, they have to mitigate odors, and they've put things in place to do so. I think it's only fair if he's correct about nasty smells coming from that site because of what Hillside plans on doing. We should have something in place to do exactly, to make them do exactly that, mitigate any odors that might be coming off their property.
So Mr. Vogt, do we have an ordinance that covers that, or do we need to go further?
Well, we have ordinances for odor control from the standpoint, as Alderman Banger refers to, with the transfer station. The petitioner and the business item before you is not to be approving any such suggested sites. It's simply to amend the planned unit development to allow the proposed petitioner's activities on the east side of the site. There's no action on the west side of the site other than staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend certain public improvements and site improvements such as the landscaping fence be taken care of for the entire site, not just the east side at this time, and that any proposed use for the west side of the property would have to come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission for specific approval. So there's no specific approval being asked of the council by this proposed ordinance at this time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banger. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. You something to add, Mr. Krumsack?
Well, let Mr. Budmats go first.
Budmats.
This isn't my ward. I spoke with several people about this, including the petitioner. None of the proposed potential uses on the west side of this are included within this ordinance, so they would have to come back to us. And there are some pretty stringent items in this approval that they need to complete within 30-day and 90-day timeframes, which they understand and they have agreed to do. So hopefully that will put the concerns of neighboring properties to rest, and there are some cleanup things that they do need to do on this property in order to get this approved, and they've agreed to those items. Just wanted to make that part of this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Budmats. Did you wish to add something, Mr. Krumpa?
Very succinctly, what Alderman Budmats also mentioned, but again, the Baliks who represent obviously Hillside, they are here, and they are cleaning it up, and they also have some other items to do, and they've made those commitments. And if you keep on watching the property, more of the concrete keeps on leaving. They were left a mess, and if you remember what it looked like to what it is now, they've done a lot of cleaning. So again, a lot of the concerns that you heard, Alderman Banger, that is part of this process. It is part of the cleanup, and then again, as has been stated, overall, this only deals with half the property.
Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon? Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Matakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yeah.
Alderman Banger?
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed. The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance D, number 18-41, 3600 Kirchhoff Road sign appeal. This ordinance, if adopted, would approve an ordinance that would formally allow an electronic message board sign to exist and be operated at the Rolling Meadows City Hall, which is located at 3600 Kirchhoff Road. The ordinance is just some housekeeping at a meeting held on Wednesday, August 8th, 2018. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 with 4 absent to recommend this item. Do we have a motion to move forward? Ms. Matakis has made that. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Matakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banger?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
7 in favor, none opposed. The ordinance is adopted. This brings us to consent ordinances, but we only have one ordinance. So that is Ordinance E for an easement agreement for the Gulf Road Ring Road for entry marker. This ordinance, if adopted, would have the City of Rolling Meadows approve and accept, for recording purposes, a permanent easement being granted for the section of land to be used for the purpose of a multi-user entry marker sign and associate expenditures and landscaping, which will be owned and maintained by the City of Rolling Meadows. The section of land is located in the northeast corner of the intersection of Ring Road and Gulf Road within the City of Rolling Meadows. The proposed entry marker is to be constructed within the permanent easement previously granted by AT&T and be granted by the Whetstone Atrium. The city's attorney has reviewed the easement language and prepared the attached ordinance. Staff is requesting approval of the easement pending preparation and subject to final review by the city manager and city attorney. The purpose of this entry marker user entry sign was discussed at the June 19th, 2018 committee, the whole meeting, and is proposed for approval at this meeting. Do I have a motion to move forward? Mr. Cannon, it has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Again, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes. With 7 in favor and none opposed, the ordinance moves forward for second reading. This brings us to new business. The next item of business is a motion to approve the warrant from September 11th, 2018, as presented by the Finance Committee. Is there a motion to approve the warrant? Is there a motion to approve the warrant?
So
Ms.
moved.
Majakis has made that motion. Has it been seconded? Is there any discussion on the warrant? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
7 in favor, and none opposed. The warrant is approved. This brings us to the consent resolutions consisting of 5 items, G through K. The chair will be pulling item G. That will leave us H, I, J, K. Does any alderman want any of the other resolutions pulled? Yes, Mr. Cannon.
K. Please.
Any other? Seeing the chair does declare an order for one motion to consider H, I, and J in one motion. Is there such a motion? Mr. Banger has made that motion. Has been seconded. Okay. The question is, Resolution H, number 18-R-86, is to award a contract to purchase police portable radios. This resolution, if adopted, would authorize the purchase of 20 new APX 6000 portable radios, which will allow each sworn law enforcement officer, for the city to be permanently assigned a radio that will always be available for their immediate use. The radio purchase, if approved, will allow 100% of the department's law enforcement officers to have this essential piece of equipment available to them during the most difficult and challenging times. The radio is such a critical piece of equipment to deploy. An officer without one is not prudent and potentially could be dangerous. Therefore, during large-scale emergencies, not having enough radios for all personnel would reduce the number of first responders that could be appropriately and safely deployed. High-level staffing instances that require more officers than we currently have radios for do on occasion occur. These high staffing incidents can and do take place during major city events, feasts, fireworks, parades, or during an unpredictable large-scale crisis, flooding, and severe weather events. As mentioned, the ability to successfully resolve and/or mitigate future large-scale events and/or emergencies could be hampered by the lack of communication equipment. The addition of these radios is a step to vastly improve our capabilities in this area. Increasing the number of portable radios will also reduce equipment transition time among officers during shift changes, thus improving efficiency of time and transfer radios to each other. Individually assigned radios will also improve accountability and care of the equipment. Each officer will be solely responsible for their assigned radio, and typically care of equipment is improved when equipment is not transferred among personnel on a daily basis. Another added bonus that surely will materialize that the service life of the radios will also increase as radios are not operated around the clock. Resolution I, number 18-R-87, is to award an annual water system leak detection contract. This resolution, if adopted, will authorize the acceptance of a proposal to complete the annual leak detention survey of the city's water distribution system. The city has had annual water leak detention surveys performed since 1994. The city's water main system is comprised of 83 miles of water main pipe and thousands of joints and connections. Last year's survey detected 5 leaks. It is estimated that the lost water revenue would have occurred to the extent of 276,840 gallons per day, estimated at over $400,000 annual cost of each hour rate. Had the leaks not been detected and repairs made, over the past 12 years, an average of 13 leaks have been found each year. Leak detection is accomplished by ultrasonically monitoring every foot of water main, hydrant, and main line value. Suspect leak sites are electronically confirmed by measuring and analyzing the timing of sound waves simultaneously from 2 monitoring points. During the course of the survey, the city is provided with leak locations and status reports. When the survey is completed, a final report is compiled. Repairs to the water system are then scheduled by the Public Works Department. Associated Technical Services Limited has performed the leak detection surveys in the city for many years. They are familiar with the water system and have always provided the city with excellent and timely services, including emergency locates. The combined value of the proposed contract is $14,567. The fiscal year 2018 utilities budget account 20-70-5030-54610 provides for $22,000 in scheduled and emergency leak detention services. The experience that ATS has with the city's water system made it advantageous to continue utilizing them as they can fairly independently, and it reduces the public works staff time needed for the project if a different vendor were to be utilized. J, resolution number 18-R-88, award a contract to purchase 2 new entry signs. This resolution, if adopted, would authorize the purchase of 2 single-sided LED illuminated entry markers to replace 1 existing entry marker that is in need of extensive repair on Hicks Road at Northrop, and that will be replaced with a solar power sign, and 1 entry marker that will be relocated and serviced as both an entry marker and as a tenant sign at the Gulf Road, Ring Road, which is with electric power from a nearby street lighting system. There are several discussions at the Committee of the Whole meetings in the past about the design of the new signs. The City Council directed staff to order new signs with white brick instead of red brick that have been installed in the past. 2 of the entry markers were replaced in 2017 as part of a multi-year program to replace all the entry markers. The preferred vendor of the new signs is Parvin Kloss, located at 165 Tugway Drive, Carroll Stream, Illinois, who was the vendor that installed the new committee event signs in front of the City Hall and the 2 entry markers in 2017. The cost of the new signs for the fiscal year 2018 is as follows. Solar-powered entry marker on Hicks Road, $21,419. Tenant entry marker at Gulf and Ring Roads, $29,606. Total cost, $51,025. Net cost, $31,025. Staff has had several conversations with two businesses located at Squibb Drive that have given preliminary approval to enter into agreement to use the sign at Gulf Road and Ring Road. Upon execution of the long-term lease use agreements with the businesses for the use of the sign, the city proposed to recoup $5,000 per sign, or a total of $20,000 off the cost of the sign. Additional costs will be utilized for electric works and the landscaping around the signs after installation. Funding of this project is provided for in the Building and Capital Improvements Fund number 33-7-3100-600-10. Again, the question is, shall all three resolutions be adopted? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Matakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Baner?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Bud Matts?
Yes.
I'm going to move the order here. We're going to go to Resolution K. Resolution number 18-R-87, award a contract for replacement and upgrade of a security system. This resolution, if adopted, will authorize the signing of a contract for the replacement of the security system at the Combined Services Facility, Public Works North at 3900 Burdick Street, and the Public Works South Facility at 3200 Central Road. The existing security systems were installed in 1998 and have since become obsolete as the components of the system are no longer available for making repairs. Staff was advised last year that certain parts of the existing systems had to be taken out of service due to the inability to get replacement parts, and as such, the project was budgeted for replacement in the fiscal year 2018 operating budget. In the proposal that was initially brought before the council in 2018, staff proposed the addition of security cameras to the system. Although staff still feels that security cameras would be an additional layer of protection, as the cameras can be monitored by the 24-hour police service desk, the cameras have now been deleted from the project and will be addressed in the future when all city building key systems are coordinated. Staff prepared requests for proposals for the upgrades and sent them to 8 qualified alarm installers. Only 2 of the installers returned proposals. Staff is recommending that a contract be awarded to Convention Technologies of 1 Commerce Drive, Schaumburg, Illinois, 60173, in the amount of $30,481 for the proposed work. The Rolling Meadows Park District will be responsible for 34.7%, $10,577 of the cost of the project, as the cost share agreement. Convergent Technologies is an international leader in security business and has provided services to the city for several years. Budgeting for the work, $35,000, is provided for in the Building Land Fund number 33-70-3100-610, fiscal year 2018. Do I have a motion to move this forward? Mr. Banger, thank you. Do I have a second? We have discussion. Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to apologize to everybody for all of my coughing and everything tonight. I've been in bed for 3 days, so thank you for hanging with me. Mr. Mayor, I guess I just make the comment, I have no problem with the Burdick part. We just keep on putting, and I know it's not a lot of money, it's $5,600, but I don't understand why we'd want to even put a dime more into Central Road. I mean, everybody at this table knows we need to do something there, and we just keep on stalling and not come up with a conclusion. I propose that we would eliminate the $5,600 as my amendment to this proposal. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Mr. Cannon, would you? I know
I'd like to make an amendment to
you'd like to
delete the Central Road part.
5,600. Is there a second?
5,649 to be exact.
5,649. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Diastis. Is there any discussion? Mr. Budmats.
Would it be okay to get comments from staff as to the necessity for the alarm upgrades at Central Road, because that wasn't included in the bid back in February?
Mr. Vogt, I believe that would be yours, correct?
Yes, Mayor. Staff, given that the cameras were earlier this year desirable, looked just at the Birdnick Street building incrementally, given that the cameras at their cost and knowing that our information technology people are working on other security improvement potentially in future years, felt that given the equipment that is at that building and that alarm system is equally of almost 20 years old, that we should include that. There is no plan right now that we're aware of for the building, and we're far more concerned with the equipment that is stored in that building from a security system protection standpoint.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Williams, sir.
Fred, what is the total protection system? Is it strictly for break-ins and stuff like that, or does it include fire and other items?
It's strictly for door contacts for entering the building, motion detectors, but not any fire equipment.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, further questions? You're good?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, or any further discussion on Mr. Cannon's motion to amend resolution number 18-R-89 to eliminate $5,649? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on Mr. Cannon's motion?
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
Alderman Banjer?
No.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
No.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
No.
Alderman Majakis?
No.
I was confused.
But it fails 4 to 3. So, a further discussion on resolution K. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll then?
Alderman Banjer?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
Alderman Cannon?
No.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
Alderman Majakis?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 no. The resolution does move forward. This brings us to resolution G, number 18-R-80. This is to award a contract for 3201 Algonquin Road Fire Station. This resolution, if adopted, would award a contract to build a fire station at 3201 Algonquin Road. Do I have a motion to move resolution G forward? Mr. Banjer has made that. Do we have a second? I pulled this so that I felt that we need to make a couple of comments on this. Staff can come to us with whatever they want, but it's up to this city council that makes the policy, and by policy I mean they decide whether we're going to pay the bill or not pay the bill. So as we go forward tonight, we either have a yes vote or we have a no vote. That's the only two ways that this will go. We will have a period of discussion here where aldermen will be making amendments, but at the end of the day, the vote will be either yes to go forward or no to not go forward. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understood where we were at. So, thank you. Mr. Banjer?
Thank you. In regards to this, I still feel comfortable going forward with this. Reviewing the design, especially last night with my sit-down with the chief, I feel it was designed well. I think the right people were involved. This stakeholders committee were department heads from the city. This is designing a new station from the ground up, so we had an opportunity to do things now at the beginning of the process that would be cumbersome or much more expensive later in the process. It's a no-frills station. I don't feel like there's any extravagant items that were added. I feel assured by the chief from last night's meeting and the folks from Wegman, the additional square footage and the design upgrades are warranted. if, as I think it was Mr. Hollish had mentioned, if we saw all this in May, and I said this 2 weeks ago, I'm surprised that we were shocked at the end of August when we actually saw the same numbers again. And I think tonight, if we try to negotiate details, I characterized that 2 weeks ago as micromanaging, and I still would characterize that as micromanaging. I think if we kill this now, we'd be, and two things, we'd be walking away from a lot of money that we've spent on this. If we kill this with the intent of trying to arbitrage lower bids in a second pass, I don't agree with that, and I think it defeats the whole spirit of this process, which was to get somebody to collect the different trades that we needed to do the different jobs to build this station, and then get the packets cooked up to send out to the bidders, and then have that lowest responsible bidder process. So once again, just to keep this rounded comment short from my end, I'm comfortable with this. I want it to go forward as is. I don't want to break it apart into little pieces. Chief stood behind everything that was changed, and he gave me insight into the input from other departments and why it was justified from all sorts of different perspectives. And I'm, as I said 2 weeks ago, I feel very comfortable with the people we have in place. They have my trust, and I think that's the most important thing here, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Majakis?
Thank you. First off, I'd like to thank the residents for coming out and speaking. Although I will ask, come regularly. We've discussed, long before I was on this council, this has been talked about. Since I've been on this council for 6 years, I haven't seen this kind of turnout. So really would have been great to have more participation. And I'm not being nasty, I'm just saying it's great to see all you guys and love to see you regularly for it. Kathy stated about that, if we say I or me up here, I'm speaking, when I say I'm speaking for my ward and what I hear and what people have told me. And I am also a taxpayer, so I have concerns, and I have no plans on moving out of Rolling Meadows because I love this city. So I'm incurring these costs also. As I stated last meeting, a couple years ago, I sat at this very desk with Mayor Rooney at that time, Senator Rooney now, sorry, and asked for a referendum for the residents to speak out on this. And I got shot down. And that was speaking from my ward, not just me speaking. So I wish that it happened at that time. A lot of things would have been avoided. We're now in a position where we've spent money on land at a higher cost than we anticipated. The chief, Wegman, staff, every 2 weeks meetings, I saw all the bids. The stack was unbelievable. When it got approved in 2016 for it, and they were saying the pricing there was going to be, you can go back in the minutes and see. And I said at that time, these costs are going to go up because it's going to be 2 or 3 years. We all know that when we do projects. And look what's happened. So I'm not happy about it either. But I also see what we have spent. And I sat down and had my meeting, and I went through the list, and it's all in the packet here, guys. Everything, there's no gold toilet seats, there's nothing extra special for these guys. We're talking about, and now, yes, it is 12,000 as opposed to 10,000 square feet. Yes, it is a bigger stations. But we're talking about things that are needed and things and costs that have gone up. And so I'm with Alderman Banjer. I'm saying to go ahead at this time, and not many people are going to like hearing that, but from what I've heard from my ward, they're ready to go forward too.
Thank you, Ms. Majakis. Mr. Budmats?
I had prepared remarks so that I wouldn't forget anything. As a newer member of the council, I realize that I'm a newbie on this project and that my fellow veteran council members have wrestled long and hard with this project. As a result, I'm looking with fresh eyes and I have less preconceived ideas about the project. Conversely, I bring less experience to the discussion regarding the site selection process, the call response times, than my esteemed colleagues. I, like many others, for better or worse, inherited a contract approved prior to my tenure to build 2 firehouses for $9 million. During my tenure, however, I have heard Alderman Cannon ask that a member of the council be provided a seat at the table for the Fire Station Committee, and that request was denied. I recalled Alderman Gallo asking for monthly reporting of the costs for the fire stations as they were incurred, and this has not been provided on that schedule either. Based on my research of the council minutes, there was little or no reason for the council to think that the fire station budgets would have increased so drastically between the contract approval in March of 2016 at $9 million and the first public budget figures discussed 2 years later at the summer meeting, or excuse me, the May meeting at $13 million. I've done the math. I believe the cost will actually be much closer to 15 than 13. In response to Mr. Hollish, immediately following the council of the whole meeting, I contacted Melissa for a breakdown on the new costs. I was told it was just a placeholder and that the real costs would not be known until the bids were received in July. Later, after the bids were known, we were told to wait as the value engineering process would affect and possibly lower the overall costs. So while I am a little bit fat, I am not at all happy about these costs. This leads me to the conclusion that the committee responsible for the design and the construction of the firehouses did not do their job adequately. That job was to design and receive bids for 2 fire stations for a cost of $9 million. At the last council meeting, we were asked to approve a budget of $5.9 million for construction of the first station alone. Rightly so, the alderman balked, and the process of each alderman in turn meeting with the general contractor and the fire chief began. Also, we could be explained on an individual basis the difference between the 2 numbers, the new one and the old one, and have those costs broken down. Here's what I've learned. The new station will house the same number of firemen and the same number of firefighting and emergency response vehicles. However, the new buildings as presently proposed will be more than 1.5 times the size of the existing Fire Station 15. This alone counts for $2.2 million of the proposed cost increase. Several more expensive and quality-conscious options have been chosen in the areas of roofing, heating, and finishes, which have added approximately $500,000 to each fire station. The first station was bid out in July, when all concrete contractors and other weather-dependent subcontractors are so busy they can't even finish the work they've already sold. So naturally, with work being plentiful, they bid their prices according to the laws of supply and demand. There was no savings realized by bidding both firehouses together as originally concepted because the second firehouse has still yet to go out to bid. Number 5, the council was not asked to approve the costs and bids were not presented for review by the council for the cost to demolish the existing structures on the land for the proposed fire station. The cost of $200,000 well exceeded the expending authority of the staff members who approved them. This is not acceptable. I'm personally affronted that we were asked at the last council of whole meeting to talk about a few $1,000s on Christmas lights, but we were overlooked to spend $200,000 on demolition costs. I urge the council to vote no. We are not in an emergency situation here. I suggest we send this proposal back to the contractor and the committee who sent it to us. We are not here to micromanage them. They need to build 2 fire stations for as close to $9 million as possible in today's construction market. Prices have not increased 44% in the last 29 months since the contract was signed, and neither has the incomes of the Rolling Meadows homeowners. I urge us as aldermen not to pick and choose which items we're going to cut from the finishes or the upgrades. We're not here to micromanage or change the process. If our input was not valued to be part of the committee, then it's not incumbent upon us to fix the problems that the committee wasn't able to solve. They need to do their job. After the committee right-sizes the buildings, which were really originally set to be a comfortable 1.25 times the size of the existing station, and specify finishes in line with those that Rolling Meadows homeowners would choose for their own homes. Things like Formica countertops, gas-forced air furnaces, and traditional shingle roofs. Then bid out both buildings at once during the winter and bring it back to the council for approval. Once approved, the city needs to hire a qualified project manager. We have a qualified fire chief. Asking the fire chief to do a job that he was not trained to do puts him in an awkward and an untenable position. Rolling Meadows is a community of hardworking people, working class people. We need fire stations that reflect those demographics. The average Rolling Meadows home costs $260,000, and the average family, as described earlier tonight, makes $62,000 a year in income. The average Rolling Meadow firefighters makes well in excess of $100,000. I support giving firemen all the tools that they need to do their job. I want to pay them well. At some point, however, we need to be cognizant of the fact that our taxpayers are already stretched to their limit. I suggest we build 2 stations. Build them for the $9 million or as close to it as possible. Use the extra money in the proposed bonds that have been asked for to replace the streets and the sewers and all of the other important functions of the city government. We cannot spend our whole bankroll on 2 fire stations. If the project can't be done for the budgeted amount, then we need to reevaluate the need for 2 stations and find a plan that is affordable and tenable for our residents. That's the end of my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, Alderman Diascus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have several motions I would like to make this evening, and I take them one at a time. My first motion is to eliminate the city monument sign that's in this budget at a cost of $50,000. And to that, I would ask the fire chief, does the elimination of this item create longer response times?
Chief, I gather you're on the line.
The answer would be no, sir.
Okay.
The answer would be no.
That's an easy answer. Does the elimination of this item prohibit?
Mr. Diaz, hold on.
We need a second. Second in the motion?
I haven't made it. Well, okay.
I'm
sorry.
I'm
I'm
going to
making
say,
a
if
motion.
we're
Sorry.
going to do this, we're going to have to do these one at a time.
That's fine, one
and
at a
slowly.
time.
So
So my
repeat your
first motion is to eliminate the city monument sign at a cost of $50,000.
Okay, do you have a second? Mr. Cannon, a second. Is there a discussion on the first motion?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. I have 2 questions I want to ask the fire chief. The first is, he answered, does the elimination of this item create longer response times? He said no. The second question is, does the elimination of this item prohibit a firefighter or paramedic from performing their assigned duty of protecting lives and property, or responding to and fighting fires, delivering emergency medical care, or participating in outreach events within the community?
Are you speaking of the sign?
Yeah, just the sign.
It does not affect that. Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
So, is there further discussion on Mr. Diaz's motion? Your motion is to
remove the sign and $50,000.
Okay. Mr. Banger, sir?
Yes, I had mentioned before, I'm just not going to be a fan of tearing this apart piece by piece, so I'll be voting no on all of these items.
Thank you. Is there further? Mr. Cannon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be voting to eliminate this, but I would also ask that we would, I think the idea behind it is all right. Maybe a few years down the line when we have the money, we could probably add to it, but I think at this point, it's just adding to the cost. So I would just recommend that we would just do conduit out to the site where we would put the city monument eventually, so we don't have to rip up the concrete eventually. But other than that, I think it's a reasonable thing to get out of there. It's not going to affect the fire service at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Gallo, Mr. Diaz's motion.
I agree with you, Alderman Diaz, where you're coming from with eliminating costs that are somewhat trivial or unnecessary or arbitrary at this time. But I don't necessarily, though I am adamantly against the expenses associated with this, I don't know that this is the appropriate approach, because I do agree with you in refining this budget back to what's critical, important, and worth the residents paying for. But I think we should leave this with the building committee to do, and we should just tell them they have to go back to the drawing board, vote this down, and just tell them they have to go back to the drawing board and meet a $9 million budget that we mandated originally.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on Alderman Diaz's Mr. Budmats.
Yep,
This is your second time, Mr. Budmats.
First time on the amendment.
First time on this one amendment.
And
Right.
so I agree with Alderman Bancher and Alderman Gallo, although I agree with what Mr. Diastis is saying, and that this is probably an unnecessary expense. I don't think that this is the forum to go through item by item and cut items and cut and chop this proposal. I think we should vote no on the whole deal and let the committee come back to us with what they want to remove in order to make their $9 million budget, or as close to it as they can get. And so if they want the input of the aldermen, I'm sure that they can invite us to a meeting and we can give them our ideas.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the amendment that Mr. Diastis has brought forth in regard to the memorial sign? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
No.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
No.
Alderman Majikas?
No.
Alderman Gallo?
No.
Alderman Banjer?
No.
My second
That
motion.
moment, that amendment fails by a 5-2 vote. Mr. Diastis, you have a second?
Yes, I've got several. My second motion is to remove the upgraded standing seam roof and use the original, shingled roof, a shingled roof. That would save us $80,000.
Your motion, do we have a second to Mr. Diastis' motion? Mr. Cannon has made that motion. Is there discussion?
Yes, I would like to ask the chief, does the elimination of this roof create longer response times?
That answer would be no.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear the comments from other people up here, and I understand where they're coming from. The only comment I would make is that we were told after the last meeting that we should go meet with people and see what was going on with these ups and extras. I guess I look at this the same way any of us here, whether they're out there or up here, how we look at things when you go buy a house or you buy a car. You can go out and buy a car, you can buy a Chevy, and you can buy one that's kind of stripped down. You can buy one that's kind of nice. You can buy one with a sunroof, but you can add all these extras. And in my opinion, a lot of these things are things that won't affect chiefs' response time. It won't harm any of the employees. The firefighters will still be well protected in two nice buildings. But to me, my opinion is that they're ups and extras. So that's just where I'm coming from. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Any other discussion on Alderman Diastis' amendment? Yes.
Thank you. I have having had the meeting with the fire chief and R.C. Wegman, I've got $720,000 that we can reduce right here and right now. Now, people are talking about numbers. Let's talk about a few numbers then.
Mr. Diastis, let's one motion at a time here.
Right,
You're there.
I'm talking about this motion.
This motion is for the roof, correct? But you're
And that
bringing up...
$80,000 is part of a $720,000 overall reduction that I'd like to make.
Correct, but I think we should do them, check them off one at a time, Mr. Diastis.
Not a
please.
problem.
So, is there further discussion on Mr. Diastis' motion to change the roofing on the fire station? Mr. Budmats.
By virtue of the fact that Mr. Dias's previous motion was not accepted, even if we accepted this and cut $80,000 off a roof, we are now going to be paying $50,000 for a sign, assuming that we would all pass after your amendments. If all the rest of them went forward, we'd be paying $50,000 for a sign that we really don't need, that the fire chief has told us we don't need. So but the problem is bringing all of these things one at a time, and that we've already not approved one of them means that we're for sure going to pay for one of them if the rest of the budget is approved tonight at the, whatever it is, at 5.9 million that they're asking for, or 5.6 million. So I would strongly urge you to come back either with all of your amendments as one amendment or no amendments, because at this point, we're going to be paying for at least the fire sign because of the manner that which you're proposing these items.
Thank you. Any other further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Diastis.
Any alderman can bring back the sign. I'm trying to, in this case, save the residents $720,000. If y'all don't want to,
excuse me, but Mr. Alderman Diaz is talking. We have had a time for everyone to make discussions, so as I asked before, let's all try and be respectful of each other. I understand it's a very passionate and emotional meeting for many of us, so Alderman Diaz, just please continue. Thank you.
That's it. That's what I have to say.
So the motion.
Can I have a second bite at the apple? I understand you want to save us $720,000. I'd like to save us about $4 million. So if we could please move this back to where it was supposed to be at $9 million, or as close to it as we can get, and let the committee do their job, rather than just save us $720,000.
Excuse me, Mr. Diaz, just let if I'm trying to keep you being able to speak, I'm going to let Mr. Diaz, go ahead, Mr. Budmats.
I'm just trying to save us more than $720,000. I appreciate your efforts. I know they're well-meaning. I just think there's more money to save than $720,000.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on Mr. Diaz's amendment? Will the clerk please call the roll on Mr. Diaz's amendment to change the roofing on the fire station?
Alderman Williams?
No.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
No.
Alderman Matakis?
No.
Alderman Gallo?
No.
Alderman Baner?
No.
Alderman Diaz?
Yes.
That amendment does fail. Mr. Diaz, you said you have a further amendment?
I have more amendments. I'd like to remove $300,000 for the HVAC upgrade, the building automation system, and reduce that by $300,000.
That's your motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Cannon has seconded. I believe through our discussion, Chief, that I think we need to open the floor up because of the conversations we had about what the effects would be of that. So do I have a motion to open the floor?
So moved.
And seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Could we have ours, Wigman? Because I believe that for our discussions with that, if there was a change like this, it was going to cause engineering changes and architectural changes? Correct?
As a fire chief, I'm not versed on making that assumption on that $300,000. We do have Terry Bohr from RC Wegman.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Terry. Wrong Terry. The Terry Bohr to come up.
Okay, Mr. Bohr is available here. He did comment in the that he's available, and these are the same discussions that we've already had one-on-one with all the aldermen and the mayor earlier this week or last week and this week. If you need further clarification, I'm sure Mr. Bohr is available, but we've already had these discussions one-on-one.
Thank you.
If you need clarification for the public, I'm sure he's available to direct your concerns.
Then we just need, does anyone need Mr. Bohr to come forward? Otherwise, we'll close the floor. A motion to close the, yes?
Only to say that Mr. Bohr told us that it would probably cost more than $300,000. We would not necessarily realize the full savings of $300,000. There would be engineering fees. There would also be changes to the roof in order to compensate for a different heating style. I don't want to misquote you, but that there would be changes to the roof necessary to accommodate different types of heating systems when they were occurred. So it might not necessarily be a $300,000 change. So by saying that we are cutting $300,000, that might not be an accurate reflection of what the costs will really, or cost savings will really be.
And if I can comment, that I agree with you, Alderman Budmats. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I was bringing out there, Chief, if someone needed more information.
We're good.
Okay, the floor is now closed. Okay. Thank you. The motion for Mr. Diaz is, and it's been seconded by Mr. Cannon. Any further discussion about the air conditioning? Mr. Cannon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess with my little knowledge of this operation, I'm not really an HVAC guy, but, you know, the building we're in right now has a similar system that we spent a lot of money on in the last year, and next year we're going to spend another $350,000. And to my limited knowledge, many of the employees that work in this building are still unhappy with heating and air conditioning issues here. So to go and actually do the same system over there is questionable in my mind. And I guess the reason part of the thing is about all the labor savings with adjustment and control issues. With all the technology available today, I don't understand why anybody would have to go and physically travel to make changes in the equipment. You can do all that with a Nest at your own house. So that's where I'm coming from. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Further discussion on Mr. Diastis' motion to eliminate the air conditioning. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Cannon.
Refreshment was my...
There was the first, there was the second, and we're voting after discussion on eliminating the air conditioning.
So, my answer is yes.
Okay.
Alderman Budmats?
No.
Alderman Majakis?
No.
Alderman Gallo?
No.
Alderman Baner?
No.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
No.
With 5 against and 2 for, that amendment does fail. Mr. Diastis, you have
Yes,
another
thank
one?
you. I'd like to propose that we eliminate $200,000 from the contingency fees, and leave it at leave the remaining $59,000 in, so that staff has the ability to cover any overages that they may have, and that once they've spent the 59, they need to come back to council for more. So the amendment is to remove $200,000 in contingency fees.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Cannon has seconded that. Is there discussion on the removal of the contingency fee from the fire station contract? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Budmats?
No.
Alderman Majakis?
No.
Alderman Gallo?
No.
Alderman Baner?
No.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
No.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
5 against and 2 for, that amendment does fail. Mr. Diastis, you have
Thank
another?
you. I'd like to propose that we remove the breathing apparatus system. As is stated, it can be put into a future year capital plan to the amount of $50,000.
Okay. Do we have a second? Mr. Cannon has made that second. Is there a discussion on the breathing apparatus? Mr. Budmats.
I will be voting yes for this. This is not part of a building. This is apparatuses going into a building. It's a furnishing. It's not a part of a building. It doesn't belong in this budget at all.
Thank you. Further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Majakis?
No.
Alderman Gallo?
No.
Alderman Baner?
No.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
No.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Budmats?
Yes.
That amendment fails by 4 to 3. Mr. Diastis?
Thank you.
Further?
I'd like to propose we eliminate the communications alerting tower to the amount of $40,000. I believe that the city can contact any wireless provider, and that they would probably put up a tower at no fee and allow us to put whatever microwave devices we need on it. So my proposal is to eliminate $40,000 there.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Cannon has made that second. Is there a discussion on the elimination of the communication tower for the fire station? Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Knowing that there's a need for this, I have no problem with that from the standpoint that we need it. But staff is very well aware that there's private contractors out there that would build this thing for us for free. And they've been aware of that for quite a while. There's all kinds of companies who would be more than happy to come in and put a tower up for us and actually pay rent to us at some level. I don't know what the level is when they build cell towers, but we would actually become an income-producing thing as opposed to an outcome. So, and again, this is not, anyhow, it can be done from an outside contractor. We don't have to spend $40,000 per station to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. Is there further discussion? Mr. Gallo, please.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to go on record as saying that we are trying to shave costs, but actually what we are doing is making a mockery of our council here in this process. And I would just request that we stop making these motions and put this to bed for now.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll on Alderman Diastis' amendment to eliminate the communication tower on the amount of $40,000?
Alderman Gallo.
No.
Alderman Baner.
No.
Alderman Diastis.
Yes.
Alderman Williams.
No.
Alderman Cannon.
Yes.
Alderman Bud Matts.
No.
Alderman Majikas.
No.
That amendment fails by a vote of 5-2. Mr. Diastis?
I'm done, thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on resolution number 18-R-80?
I do have an original question.
Yes, Mr. Gallo, sir.
I just need help understanding from August 28th, when this was Agenda Item O, Resolution Number 18R-80, it was award contract 3201 Algonquin Road Fire Station, and then in the week that we had off, and we now have this as Agenda Item G, Resolution Number 18R-80, it is now a resolution approving an amendment to Number 1 GMP, or Gross Maximum Price, to the Standard Design Build Agreement General Conditions between the owner and design builder. This was postponed at the August 28th council meeting. How is this no longer still the question of awarding a contract to Wegman?
Mr. McCall.
The, whoever prepared the resolution, amended the resolution to make it captioned differently. Tell me where it's different.
Well, here, and this is just my opinion, but I see this as though we are trying to approve the rate increase, but we are no longer discussing whether or not to award Wegman this contract, because their previous contract should be nullified by being out of scope and out of budget with so many changes made to it. So the conversations should still and always be awarding a contract for 3201 Algonquin Road Fire Station. No, I'm done, yeah.
We've already awarded the contract.
When?
We approved a contract with Wegman a couple of years ago.
In 2016. However,
Mr. Gallo,
okay.
You know what, if we're going to have conversations up here, gentlemen, and we're going to allow Mr. McCall to speak, we need to be respectful of each other. So please, go ahead, Mr. McCall.
Thank you. So this amendment, or this resolution, simply approves the amendment that awards the contract to Wegman based on the now agreed upon guaranteed price. So,
Is it Mr. Gallo?
I'm done. So
Go ahead, Mr. Gallo. Did it answer your question?
Well, I just see it as the previous contract of 2016 is broken because we haven't honored scope or price. And so we should be revisiting whether or not Wegman receives a contract. The 2016 contract has a scope of a certain series of work-related tasks associated to a price of $9 million. Mm-hmm. The scope has since changed this time, and so has the price. And so we should be discussing whether or not to approve a new contract based on the scope and the price.
Well, I think maybe that's where the difference comes in, because the scope of the work, when the agreement with Wegman was entered into in 2016, really was not agreed to, because no one knew at that time what the scope of the work was going to be. There was a budget put in place as to what the different phases would cost. But be that as it may, there was, in portions, there was land acquisition, and once the parcels were acquired, they're based on the uniqueness of the acquisition of each parcel. The architect was going to prepare plans, the scope of work was going to be done, and that's where we are today. So there really was no definitive scope. No one would have any idea what the scope of the work was back in 2016, because it was all going forward.
So
One other
Mr.
question.
Budmetz?
Yeah, I suppose this means we're going to have to reevaluate the contract or re-amend it once we get the second bids and we define that second scope, because at this point, once we approve this, we're kind of married to Wegman, no matter what the price is that they bring forward on the next firehouse, because we've already have a contract in place with them to build it based on the contract. It says we will build 2 firehouses, and we only know the price of 1 firehouse at this point. So if we amend the existing contract and say that we're going to build and increase their price and by whatever dollar amount it is, when it comes time for the bid for the second one, we're more or less obligated to whatever they bid to us, because our contract calls us to build 2 firehouses.
Thank you. So, after any further discussion, the question is, shall resolution number 18-R-80 award a contract for 3201 Algonquin Road Fire Station? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Banjer?
Yes.
Alderman Diastis?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
No.
Alderman Cannon?
Yes.
Alderman Bud Matts?
Nope.
Alderman Majikas?
Yes.
Alderman Gallo?
No.
That resolution does pass by a margin of 4-3. This brings us to other businesses and reports. I have a mayoral appointment here. I have Alderman Rob Williams to the Ad Hoc Capital Improvement Committee. Do I have a motion to move forward to appoint Alderman Rob Williams to the Ad Hoc Committee? Mr. Banjer has made that. Do I have a second? Can I have a voice vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. City staff reports. This brings community items of interest. Mr. Krumstock?
Thank you, Mayor. And I actually have one additional item to add that was put in there, but the first one that we do want to mention is if you missed the Saturday, August 25th City Market, the last one for the 2018 season is going to be September 22nd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the parking lot at Community Church, 2720. And on Monday, September 24th from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., Jersey Mike's Subs, located at 1450 Gulf Road, will be conducting a fundraiser for the Rolling Meadows Community Events Foundation. Come support a great cause and know that 25% of the proceeds come back to the foundation. And flyers are available here at City Hall. And then we do want to mention and thank Meadows Fellowship Christian, obviously, for all their work during the Friday cruise nights, and that was it for 2018. We do appreciate, and hopefully they will be back for the 2019 cruise nights again on Friday nights. Then, as the mayor has mentioned, we did have another Friday Rocks. We do want to thank everybody who attended and participated in the third and final 2018 Friday Rocks and Rolling Meadows, especially all the volunteers. One of them is still sitting over here. And again, it was conducted on Friday, September 7th at Campbell Hill Park, and as the mayor mentioned, there were 800 ducks that went down the muddy waterfall. None of them were hurt or didn't make it through the waterfall to the end, but we do appreciate everybody for both those events, and again, all money collected to help during the duck race actually helps the City Environmental Committee, Rotary Club of Rolling Meadows, and the Rolling Meadows Park District Foundation. We hope to see everybody next year. The Park District already says that they have 200 more ducks, so hopefully we can sell out 1,000 ducks next year. And on Saturday, October 6th, the City Park District and the Community Event Foundation will be conducting a hometown hoedown in Campbell Hill Park from noon to 5 p.m. We'll have an update on that one next City Council on September 25th. And then on Saturday, October 13th, the Fire Department will be conducting its open house from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Newkirk's Fire Station at 2455 Clem Grove. The item to add, and that was actually brought up a little bit late, but Mayor, they are actually doing another bike ride this Saturday. So the another one will be conducted by the Environmental Committee. It is this Saturday, September 15th. They're meeting at 8:15 by Campbell Hill Park by the waterfall. And if you didn't make the last one, I'm sure the mayor will give you the route. But they are doing another one this Saturday, September 15th, starting at 8:15. With that, those are items of interest for this event.
Mr. Vogt, I believe you're on call now for the August traffic report.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The committee met August 29th. Highlight several discussion items, first being request for stop or yield control at the intersection of Colleen Court. Traffic warrants are not met, and no recommendation to take any action is made by the committee. Second being parking restriction request, additional ones for 3700 block of Kingfisher. The resident requester has given us additional information. We will evaluate this, and this item will appear for discussion at the next meeting. Meadowbrook Court, again, we had a request. This is the second request to look at enforcement for overnight truck parking. The police department is handling this. No action is required by the committee at this time. Next item, Yarrow Lane. This is the area where a portion of the fence that used to exist by Meadow Edge Homeowners Association and the Plum Grove Junior High existed. That section has been removed, is not being reinstalled, but the committee looked at this location and does not believe that it's warranted to put in a school crossing or signage at that location. Next item, Fairfax and Rowling Road, just an update. Previously, we discussed changing the apartment complex orientation of traffic from outbound to inbound due to the driveway being located very close to the intersection of Fairfax and Rowling. The owner has made the necessary striping changes in the parking lot, and we're looking to have staff assist with the appropriate signage for that location, and then that item will be completed. Another second request has been received for the DuPont Avenue, Vermont Street, where there's a 90-degree curve. You may remember that 4 single-family homes were approved earlier this spring for construction, but no activity has taken place yet. As an alternate to stop signs at that location that the committee doesn't believe are warranted nor appropriate, Public Works Department will be installing Chevron curve signs, enhanced center lane striping with reflectors, and reflective materials on the curve ahead signs. We'll also look to speak with the school district to potentially move the bus children collection versus the bus stop at that location or near that location to see if we can improve the situation at that location for now as an interim measure. We'll continue to monitor that. Lastly, the Gulf New Wilkie Road intersection, we received a request to install right turn yield to bicycles and pedestrian signs. Public Works Department can do that with this committee's recommendation on New Wilkie Road. We will have to contact IDOT to make that request for installation of such signs on Gulf Road, so that is a recommendation. The next committee meeting will be scheduled on Wednesday, October 3rd. That is our report.
Thank you. September 18th Committee of the Whole meeting.
Obviously, you have before you, there's actually going to be one removed. The vacant city property at 2400 West Algonquin Road will be discussed. The utility rate study is not ready for a committee of the whole at this point in time. Baxter Woodman still owes some additional information to it before we're ready to bring it, so that one will not be on the COW meeting. The fiscal year 2019 budget is being finalized. The 2019 resurfacing and reconstruction street program will be discussed and is finalized. And then obviously the fire chief wants to talk about mobile integrated health pilot program that's in place. So those are really the 4 items that we have for the September 18th Committee of the Whole that I will not be at.
Thank you. This brings us to matters not on the agenda, and yes, I did do the bike ride, but I could not tell you how the bike ride is going to turn out this week because they're going to go a different direction. I will thank some willing neighbors because I did discover that I had a leak in my rear tire, and if it wasn't for some kindness there and get some air, I may not have made it to the end. Are there matters not on the agenda this evening? Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a couple of things. Thank you. I had a resident call me the other day about a problem, and I didn't know how to answer them, so I'm hoping we can get some information to that resident. I think they'll be watching TV tonight. On Woodland Court and Meacham, we have a street light on the corner there. It's ours, but there's branches blocking the light itself. This person did a lot of due diligence and actually called us first because they thought that was ours. we were told, they were told by our city, our Public Works Department, that they couldn't cut that branch because it was actually on state property. That person then called the state, and the state said, no, it was not our problem, it's Schaumburg's. And the resident pointed out to him, no, it's not Schaumburg property, it's actually in Rolling Meadows. It's a county issue. And we all know the county doesn't do anything for us right now. As you can look at Quinton every day and see the stuff that they've lacked responsibility of taking care of. So I don't know what to tell this resident. I don't understand why we just can't cut a couple small branches and call it a day. I'm not trying to step on anybody's feet, but it just seems to be overkill that a person has to go to that much trouble just to get a couple branches so that light actually functions as a light. So
We'll direct it to Mr. Volt, and Mr. Volt, if you could follow up on that, please.
Great.
Thank you.
A couple other thoughts. I didn't want to bother during the meeting, but, we approved the 2 entry signs today, and I'm fine with that. But, I noticed that we, over on Gulf Road, we actually have a couple of businesses that actually help support that sign because we put their names on them. Maybe we should consider putting together a formal program for the city to offer that to other people. For instance, the one we're going to do right in front of Northrop Grumman, it's virtually on their property, or it's right in front of them. Maybe they would have helped us with the cost of that if we put their name underneath the sign. I think other people might enjoy that opportunity to do that. I would just ask that we would consider that at another day. And I guess the last question I would just ask in general, I know we're going to talk next week about the vacant Algonquin property that I asked about 2 months ago. So I'm hoping that staff comes back with some information, not just questions for us. We were asked, we had asked specifically about ComEd and about at least a general number of how much it would cost to move the pole. We've done, to my knowledge, other than cut the lawn there, we've done nothing to enhance that property. We still have parking lot that's what used to be part of Byline Bank that we bought. It still looks like it's on our property. There's still lights of Byline Bank that are on our property. What are we going to do about those things to make that property more? And I hope that those answers come to us so they don't say, oh, we don't know the answers to that. We'll get back to you, because this goes back now many, many months besides the 2 months. So I would just like some answers next week on those, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for listening.
Okay. Staff has heard you, and they will come up. You're not going to be there, right? Okay.
Will be part of the report as best I can.
Thank you. Any other items not on the agenda? Is there a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?